In this video, I'm going to teach you the very, very basics of drawing a human figure. Okay, I know it's very intimidating. Drawing people is very intimidating. So you look at this and you're like, oh, I'm never going to be able to draw that. We start from the very beginning, I promise. And we start with stick figures because literally everyone can draw a stick figure. I don't care who you are. And personally, I love people's stick figures. So before we get started, go ahead and grab a piece of paper and a pencil. Pause this video. Grab a piece of paper and a pencil so you can draw along with me. Okay, you ready to go? Now, I want you to draw a stick figure, just however you do it. Everyone can draw one. And personally, I think everyone has their own little different style of stick figures that I really like. That's my stick figure. I tend to always have a very long neck on mine. It really bugs, but some people do stick figure with like just the straight across arms, which I like. And then some people I've noticed draw their stick figure with the lines coming out right out of the head. See, I always tend to have a way too long neck, but I kind of like that. And then some people, my favorite, I think these people, this must be some kind of psychology test because I think whoever draws stick figures like this is just kind of a genuine, like a generally happy person because this stick figure, his arms are up, he looks so happy. Okay, stick figures are great and everyone can draw one. And we can learn a lot about drawing a realistic human figure by starting with stick figures, okay? So the first step to making this stick figure that anyone can draw and turning it into a little bit more accurate to the human body is proportion, okay? The one thing about stick figures, all of these guys, is usually their arms and their legs are way too short compared to the length of the torso, okay? So we're going to use this guy as a reference, and we're going to pay attention to where the hips are, where the legs start. Maybe somewhere like right there. I'm kind of imagining like a bend where his thigh starts, okay? And this distance, this is like the very center point. So this distance from the top of the head to the hip should be the same distance from hip to the leg, okay? Pretty close. So let's look at that, what that looks like on a stick figure. And every time I'm drawing on this piece of paper, go ahead and draw with me. So I got my head and my torso, and however long that is, I need to add a leg that's the same length. Okay. Now let's pay attention to arms. This guy does not have his arms down by his side, but this guy does. So we want to pay attention to the tips of the the tips of the finger. Where do they hit the body? You know, kind of on the thigh, past the hips. So when we add some arms, we want them to be that long. All right. Okay, that is the first step to making our regular stick figures look a little bit more proportional and anatomically correct. Now, this is still terrifying. It now is almost maybe even scarier because it's so long and skinny. We've gotten the correct length, but we haven't accounted for the width of the human body. Okay, and so this is where I teach people to add a little horizontal line that connects shoulder to shoulder. Okay, and you can feel it on your own body. If you feel your own shoulders, that bony part in the front, okay, that's kind of what I'm looking for, that boniest part in the front. And then same thing with the hips, and you can feel this on your own body as well. The part of your hips, the boniest part that kind of sticks forward, is kind of what we're imagining. Okay, so how this looks on our stick figure, so we got our head and our torso, and then we can add a horizontal line for shoulders and a horizontal line for hips, okay? Now, an athletic person, like a gymnast or someone who works out a lot, might have broader shoulders, especially if you want this, like a guy to look jacked, okay? And then the hips might be smaller, okay? That's gonna look like a bigger, more built person. Not necessarily masculine, because I've seen some gymnasts, those little gymnasts, and they have really broad shoulders and really tiny hips. But typically if you want to go more feminine or like a more voluptuous soft woman, you would have shorter shoulders and broader hips. I mean, I know that's pretty exaggerated, but see how this tends to look a little bit more masculine, that tends to look a little bit more feminine, or just however athletically fit this person is. I tend to just keep them equal, so it looks just neutral. Okay, and then let's add our legs and our arms. Okay? Now, yes, it still does look very like skeletal, but we're just starting with the basics before we have to worry about detail and muscles and all that jazz. So, if you haven't yet, pause the video and go ahead and draw a stick figure that has correct proportions in length and correct proportions in width. Okay, now my next challenge for you, and I'm not gonna draw it yet because I don't want to give it away, but I want you on your own to draw a stick figure walking or running. Pause the video and spend a few minutes on that because sometimes it's harder than you might think. Walking or running. Okay, now I don't know what yours looks like, but I've seen all sorts of things happening in class. I just love it. People might kind of do that. I've seen people do that. Okay, but what I hope to see is a little bit of bending of these limbs. Okay, and this brings up something that we haven't included here is joints. Okay, so elbows and knees are quite important. So you can draw those onto your stick figure using little circles to help us remember these are joints. This is where things bend. And if you're wondering, how do I draw a stick figure that's running or walking? I'll give you a quick demo. Walking stick figure tends to have both legs bent. One needs to be in front of the other, okay? And then the arms. Oh my gosh, see, this is my classic stick figure, way too long of a neck. It's just kind of like a quirk that I do all the time, but you can kind of see how that would work.
Kaylee, Savannah, and Clara, please go back to class.
Oh man, those girls are now immortalized in my demonstration video. There we go, that's a little bit better. But you can see, however you want to do that, you can see that joints are very important for showing movement of the human body, okay? All right, and then you can always add feet if you want, and you can always add even some ovals for hands too, okay? All right, practice that a little bit on your paper if you need to, because now we're gonna go over to drawing an actual human figure. How do we take this guy and represent him with our anatomically correct stick figure, okay? So at first I like to draw right on top of this, and I don't know how well you can see my pencil on there. Maybe I'll just get a Sharpie. Okay, so we want to look for that angle of the shoulders and the angle of the hips, okay? And then we want to imagine a line down the center of that person. He's got kind of a curve from there to there, okay? And then we can imagine a line down the center of his leg, circle for a joint, a line down the center of his calf, oval for the foot. And we can't see that bottom part of the leg or the foot, so we're just gonna stop there, okay? And then our arms. And then a head. Now that I've kind of outlined what it is we're looking at and trying to draw, now you can sketch it out with me on your paper. So you need a fresh sheet of paper and a pencil. We're gonna be practicing this drawing from these models several times. And if it helps to remember, some kids just don't remember what to draw first. And so I say, you know, remember that capital I? You can start with a capital I, which is your shoulders, your torso, and your hips, okay? And then limbs are everyone's pretty good at limbs. Okay, Okay, and that's about all there is to draw. Okay, it looks a little weird, like, because that's happening there, but if you want, you could kind of suggest a little leg going back into space and a foot. But honestly, I think that looks weirder, so don't do it. All right, I'm gonna move this picture now. If you have not finished, you can go ahead and pause the video so you can keep drawing this model before I move on. Otherwise,
Richie Serrano, will you please come to the office? Richie Serrano to the office, please.
okay, and our next model, we'll do this football player. Okay, so let's talk about angles. I've been talking a lot about this angle from shoulder to shoulder and from hip to hip, okay? And I want to talk about slope. Now, my math teacher growing up, when we would be graphing and talking about slope, he always referred to the slopiness of a line, and I love that. It's just stuck with me forever. Okay, so angles or slopes or slants, whatever word you want to talk about, is super important with drawing, especially the human figure. Okay, so I'm talking about if I line my pencil up on here, we're looking at that slant, okay? Imagine you're a skier or a snowboarder or a skateboarder, okay, and you're at the top of this hill and you're going down. Kind of imagine like, oh, okay, I think that's a pretty good slope. I feel like I'd get going pretty fast, but not so scary I would die, okay? That one, I would never go down a hill that steep on something with wheels or on skis, okay? I feel like I would go way too steep and I would die, okay? And then let's look at maybe the slant of his arm right there. And then this slant, that is not very steep. That would be kind of a boring ride, okay? So anyway, that's just how I imagine, that's how I interpret different slopes and how I can make sense of it on my paper, okay? So let's draw this guy together now. And we're gonna start with the capital I. And this is something artists do with their pencil. If you're looking at something farther away from you, not like a piece of paper, you can close one eye and hold your pencil up to judge the angle, okay? Now we're gonna look for his torso. I feel like he kind of has a curve in his torso. Okay. Okay, so I hope you're drawing along with me. And this slope of the leg is super important for getting this pose. All right, maybe you have something that looks similar to mine. If you're not done yet, you can pause this video anytime to finish, okay? I think possibly the torso looks a little short on mine, and maybe the legs are a little bit longer. How his hips are a little bit lower down here, okay? But angles are super important because I've seen a lot of kids draw this guy, and it's very surprising how slanted this leg is and how much his body is kind of like leaning over. I mean, look at this foot, and if we line that up for where we think the rest of his body should be, yeah, his body's way off to the side. That's what makes this pose so engaging to look at. That's how we tell this guy is in motion. He's running, he's dodging, possibly like in the process of falling. That's what makes it look so, like it has so much movement and so engaging, okay? So that stuff's important. Now, let's talk about this leg right here. This little thing right here, this line is super short. That is called foreshortening, okay? When something is coming towards the camera in space, like my pencil right now, okay, you're not seeing the full length of it, okay? And the more, I don't know, towards you it's coming or away from you in space, the shorter that pencil is going to appear. Okay, same thing with this leg. It looks shorter just because it's going away from us in space. Okay, so you just draw what you see. Okay, next one, I'm going to move this over. Okay, and I'm not going to draw on the picture this time. I'm just going to wing it on the paper, and you can do it along with me. If you want, you can add shoulder joints. Okay, I think you get the idea. I think you're ready to go on your own. To complete this assignment, you have watched the video and drawn along with me. So you should probably have about 3, we drew 3 together. 3 figures. And now I want you to do 2 on your own. And so then you'll have, I want you to turn in 5 stick figures to complete and make up this assignment. Thanks for watching.